No music. Didn't set it up.
All right, welcome back, and you're welcome for the prolonged intro music. You know, we recently heard that there's some fans out there of our music, so you're welcome for that. We had a little hiccup, but we're back to the Culture and Sanity podcast, episode number 16, and we're back onto our schedule. We had to do one last week. We're back onto our schedule of every other Saturday, so thank you for being here. Welcome back. And we have our co-host back. Thanks to Jasmine for filling in, our Vigilance Radio Network director. So we're back, and we have, yes, round of applause for the fill-in, the substitute teacher. Few things on the docket for talking tonight, and we also have another new game because we like to keep it fresh. Eventually we'll start recycling this because my brain will run out of ideas, but we got a new game. We got a few things on the docket. We have some more on Roseanne cancellations and a question about what that means potentially in terms of a cultural shift. We have a question on...
There you go. Turn it sideways.
Sideways, like that.
No. You're speaking to the top of it.
Like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's a little quiet in my headphones,
yeah,
too.
I'll work on that.
Okay. Mark Hamill and his continued views on his character, Luke Skywalker. And then Josh and I on Thursday, that sounds better. Josh and I on Thursday watched the It movie of today, Hereditary. So we definitely want to talk about that because it's getting a lot of buzz. It's getting a lot of Oscar buzz, and you should know why. And you should know why you should, if you're going to see it with open eyes and a shielded mind.
Yeah,
I guess would be the best way to put
good.
That. So don't casually watch a movie like that. Don't casually watch most movies or any movie, Josh would say, but especially a movie like that with the content that it has. Yeah.
I don't believe in watching anything casually the first time.
There you go. So few things on the docket, and then our game, which tonight is music-centric. I feel like we don't give music enough love on our podcast, but it's going to be music-centric, and we'll get more on that later. So if you're tuning in or will be tuning in now or in the future, thanks for being here, and without further ado, let's get started. So this is an article that's a couple weeks old, but it was an article from vulture.com. I think you posted this one, Josh, but the headline of the article is Roseanne's cancellation is a sudden cultural shift, and it's just talking about what it continues to mean or what it could mean. This particular writer was saying a few things, and one of the things that I thought was most interesting about what they were saying about the Roseanne cancellation is they're basically saying that it was, that industry righting a wrong in the first place because the show and her specifically should have never been relaunched because of her outspoken views on several different things and her unabashed or unabashful. Is that
Unabashed?
The word? Unabashed views on certain things and controversial things. So this particular writer was saying that first of all, the show should have never been started, but good on ABC for righting that wrong. But one of the things that I pulled from this particular article was this, and I'll just read a short little paragraph, a couple sentences. The writer says this: for all of those reasons, Dungy is the showrunner. Dungy's decision to cancel Roseanne feels like a gutsy move. It looks like a stand against racism, a line drawn in the sand to delineate what is reasonable and what is not. It even looks like a data point in the how do we separate the art from the artist debate. Remember, we've talked about this in the past on this show. And it offers a heartening answer. We don't have to, because in this case, ABC will not finance that artist. It's somehow even more heartening because it comes from a massive corporate conglomerate that might lose money by making this decision. And it feels remarkably just, and it feels decent. So I guess our springboard for this topic, and I'm hoping we can move on from the Roseanne thing after this. We've covered it several times now.
It's got so many angles.
It does. That's a thing, too. That's what I was telling someone. There's so many different things. And, hey, we don't make the news. You know, we cover it from our own particular angle, right?
Right.
So, hey, I'm not out here making the news. I'm just pulling the news. We're pulling the news. But so our angle tonight on this topic is this a heartening stance against racism, or is there like some sort of fear of censorship? Again, this person says, on the topic of how do we separate the art from the artist, they say we don't have to because this company will make that decision for us, or will cut out their voice or whatever, based on any number of reasons, and we know why the whole Roseanne thing started. But so is it a heartening stance against racism, or is there a fear of censorship? So, first of all, what do you think?
I mean, I don't like it. I'm reminded immediately of, sorry, I'm like double duty right now, but I'm reminded immediately of something Orwellian. Like George Orwell. Yeah. Good old George. I'm reminded of like Ray Bradbury. I'm reminded of any number of dystopian futures where, I don't care if you call it the government or a corporation that decides how it is that we input our intake of entertainment, however you want to say it. I mean, these people have a massive amount of control of our lives. And basically what you're saying is that you would prefer that.
Yeah, and that's a scary thing to suggest. And when does that stop? And
right, at what point? It doesn't. At what point it doesn't stop.
Yeah, that's a lot of power to relinquish right then and there. And yeah. I mean, I'm just wondering if it segues into this topic I'm looking at on our board here that I wasn't necessarily planning on covering tonight, but what Rob Reiner was saying about holding people accountable and stuff. I don't know if there's a direct connection.
I mean, I can't see the board. It's behind me.
Well, the Rob Reiner, he was on Fallon or something, and it's more of the, so if you saw the Post, it's more of that. It's the media's job.
The Post with
it's Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep.
Yeah, it's
great movie.
It's the media's job. And I feel like there's some sort of but yeah, like we have or notion that it's a good thing and it's a decent thing to do that is red flaggy at a minimum.
The question that you have to ask no on Roseanne, but an automatic yes on show that got rebooted.
Socially acceptable versus not socially acceptable.
Right, exactly. Well, that's what it is. Why is that the case? And then you have to ask the question of like separating art from artists. Like, why is it acceptable for Roseanne to have never to say that that her art should never have gotten made, and for them to take a stance against it. But in the same vein, for them to give a standing ovation to
Polanski?
Yeah, Roman Polanski at the Oscars.
Because it moves from here to here to here to
right,
here.
Wherever they want it to be.
Wherever they want it to be.
For those of you who don't remember, Roman Polanski was convicted, I believe.
Yeah. He was found guilty.
Yeah. Of
like raping a 13-year-old girl or something like that.
Right.
Several years later, wins a huge Academy Award for a movie and gets a standing O because they chose to forget about it.
Right. For that moment. So for him, so that's considered art, and that's okay. But Roseanne, like, that's not considered art. And her stance, of course, is, for the blue collar, right? She's supposed to represent a certain class of America. Well, why is that not okay? I mean, certainly she does represent
And it's so weird, too, because, like, we were just covering some other article where how the show was doing a good job of, speaking to these issues, right? These different social, economic, racial, whatever issues. Right. And it was, and it was not afraid to tackle any subject thing, and it was relevant because, and that was one of many reasons why the show was just doing so well, too. And so I don't understand it. I don't understand how it turns on a dime. And also, I mean, this person says that they were righting a wrong that should never been aired. But did ABC just get scared? Right?
Yeah. Well,
Roseanne has been outspoken, and we're not saying like specific things she says like we're in support of those things for the record. But she's been outspoken for decades now. Like, right. She has a reputation. Like, that's what she signed up for on some level,
well,
right?
I do think that ABC got scared. I think it got scared of her having too much power because she had the network by the balls, and they wanted to say, and
because that was like that cash cow, you mean?
Right. And they wanted to say, no, wait a second, you don't have us. And look, I'm not excusing. John Parker says truth is a moving target.
Yep.
Where is that from?
Well, actual truth is not a moving target, but today's truth, your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth. Right. That is a moving target.
The subjective truth. Where is that from? I swear that's from something. Anyway,
she had the network by the balls.
Yeah.
Cash cow.
Yeah, she had the network by the balls, and we're not excusing what she said. I think that what she said was inappropriate.
Right.
Although there does appear to be a separate context, but that's what you get when you're, you expect things to be taken out of context, and then the other thing is she's a comedian, and she says controversial things all the time. So
because that's what they do.
If I'm wrong, I mean maybe I'm wrong, but it kind of seems like ABC was looking for.
Well, I was just gonna say, and she's like heavily pro-Trump, right? So automatically she's got a target.
Well, I don't know if she's pro-Trump so much as anti-Hillary.
I thought she's like outspoken Trump supporter.
I don't know.
But she's attached to Trump on some level, whether she's anti-Hillary or pro-Trump, however you want to look at it. So she's already got a target on her back for that. So maybe that's true. Maybe they're just looking for that, and she presented an opportunity and an easy, and then we'll wash our hands here.
Right.
But yeah, so it's a scary thing, and it's not. I mean, obviously we don't want to suggest that that's what whoever this writer is from Vulture, that's a decent thing and that's a good thing, and we don't have to decide this anymore because we're willing to let people do it for us.
Right.
Red flags.
Yeah, that's a super slippery slope.
Red flags, yeah.
And it's, as been demonstrated in the conversation, it's really based on a person's opinion more than anything else. And that's really scary. And it's sad to be Roseanne from that standpoint. And, I think even Jerry Seinfeld, I mean, he noted.
Yeah, you were saying something about him earlier.
Well, he just said that he didn't think that they should have canceled the show and, picked up another one in its place, which they did. Now they're doing the Connors instead of Roseanne.
Oh, already? That? Like they've already made that decision?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they've made a decision. It's the Connors now. But he was saying they shouldn't have canceled Roseanne because they shouldn't, you shouldn't kick a horse when it's down, basically. He said
So if anything, that wasn't the decent thing to do.
Right. Well, I don't know if he was saying, he said something about, like, comedians losing jobs. And he was saying, like recast her. That's what he said. Like,
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't. Yeah. Because the show was like we were talking about, and like apparently was the popular opinion. Like the show was speaking into a lot of different things. Yeah. So yeah, why can't you just recast her? Because she's the heart and soul.
Because because they don't want to recast her. They want to make a point. And by they, I do mean a specific like agenda of people. They want to make a point that they have control, that having a difference of opinion will not be tolerated. Yeah, and
in that industry, if you're not, and I don't like using those terms, whatever, like left and right or whatever, but if you're not on that side, like you are kind of like ostracized and outcasted, right? And yeah, I mean, we talked about, I think we talked about it before with like Tim Allen.
Right.
He just got his show back because it was picked up by a different network, right?
Right.
Yeah, but same kind of thing. Like, if you have a different opinion, beware.
Well, and of course, not that
or the opposite opinion.
Not that what was said wasn't inappropriate, but it was outside of the realm of the show, and she's known for saying controversial things. And if you dig into her past. Actually, if you dig into the past of any stand-up comic, you're going to find all sorts of egregious things.
Yeah, where do you think they draw their material from?
Right.
You're all the best ones.
All sorts of egregious, uncomfortable, and socially inappropriate things. Blue material.
That's what they call them, right?
Yeah, blue material.
Blue comics. Yeah, so scary thing. And
it's kind of connected to like what's going on with... what's his name? Nerdist.
Chris Hardwick.
Chris Hardwick. I mean, look at Chris Hardwick. It's he said, she said. Wow. John Parker just suggested that Amy Schumer should play Roseanne.
Oh, jeez.
But look at Chris Hardwick. I mean, it's not the same, but it's he said, she said, and immediately he was removed from everything. Even the Nerdist. I
hate it. Yeah.
Even the Nerdist, like...
dropped his name.
Yeah, they dropped his name.
Any affiliation, and it's like, dude, he... created that empire,
right?
And it was just an accusation. Literally, all it takes.
Right.
That's all it takes.
Everybody wants to so quickly remove without any thought process about what is being said, and it's turning into a new form of censorship, and it's what's the word for it? Judgment without representation. What am I thinking of, guys?
Judgment without representation. Judge Dredd?
No, dude. No, it's one of our constitutional rights. I can't remember what the term is called, but
we're gonna get flack for this.
Without representation.
There's an action. Need him.
Right. Where's Truth Time with Pastor Monty? No, that's taxation without representation. Is that one?
So we're just talking about the right, guilty till proven innocent, or innocent till proven guilty.
Right.
But it's flipped nowadays.
Right.
Yeah. He not that we're some sort of gossip column, but he allegedly released text messages from her literally a few nights or something before she came out with that, and she appears to be a very unstable person. But
it's completely confirmed that she was cheating on him.
Yeah.
And all sorts of things.
But she spins it and creates this image, and boom, Chris Hardwick.
Because we got to believe immediately what somebody says, otherwise.
And it's specifically. The torch and pitchforks are out, right? It's specifically for women, and we're not saying there aren't those cases out there.
Well, there are the Terry Cruzes of the world.
Yeah. I don't mean to laugh, but yeah, the torch and pitchforks are out, and so it's all it takes.
Well, it's a derivative of. I don't want to get too nerdy on you guys, but it's a derivative of this dialectical behavior therapy. Sorry, based on something called CBT,
and
cognitive behavior
therapy, and zero.
But basically, the idea is that you have an environment called it's it's like a non-helpful environment. I can't remember what it's called, but one of the markers of an environment that is unstable for people is when they don't immediately believe you. And this is one of these things where we have to immediately believe people. You know, like, wasn't there some sort of I don't know if there's a clause in Roseanne's contract, or like, is there some sort of morality clause in Roseanne's contract where they could just fire her?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be interested to know.
The other side of that is like, what's going on?
Or like, is she still going to get paid out? Is that some sort of this weird thing?
I think there is a thing
they
about
fired
that
her,
because
but
it's her character.
They have to pay out her contract.
There is a thing about it being her character. Are you aware of what's going on in the it's the United Methodist Church, I think. There's this like major pastor, I can't remember his name, but United Methodist pastor who, this is more a viral visual subject, but
keep going.
Who got taken up on charges. It was Jeff Sessions. Sorry, I'm melding two things.
Okay.
Jeff Sessions got put up on charges by the United Methodist Church.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
For being amoral.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of things, there was this pastor who got dropped from his Baptist church. I want to say it was the Southern Baptist Convention for making a comment about this about a hypothetical teenage girl. And in what he was talking about was the lewd behavior of the boys. But in talking about the lewd behavior of the boys toward this hypothetical teenage girl, he said things that the boys would be saying, as if she was like, hot or whatever. Yeah. And not to say, I mean, I'm sure there's more to it, but it's just like we just live in this powder keg.
Yeah, for sure.
Where's the representation? Where is innocent until proven guilty?
Yeah. Yeah, I listened to this podcast, and this one guy, he's like vehemently against that kind of climate, right?
Right.
And he says it. They host multiple days a week, and at least once a week it comes up naturally because it's
everywhere.
It's everywhere, and he always just says, you better, if that's what you want to push and that's what you believe in, you better watch your back because you're next. Like, and
yep.
It will eat you up. Like, they will eat you up, and just watch out if that's really what you want to. If that's the climate you want to live in, just you watch your back.
Yeah, anything that you say. Yeah. And again, it's not to say that it's inappropriate, that it wasn't inappropriate what she said. It's I'm going to go ahead and say it's I dare say it's un-American the way in which she was reacted to. That's the issue. I don't think the forefathers would be okay with the way in which she was reacted to. You know?
Yeah, that just like in my head, that just spiraled into a whole other conversation about
right.
what the forefathers intended for this country,
right?
And what's different things that are going on. But anyways, we can move on from Roseanne, and with that, we lay her to bed or to rest. No, I don't know. We'll see. We don't make the news again. I guess we'll cover this. We'll spend the last half talking about Hereditary, since that's the bigger one. So Mark Hamill. He's been sort of outspoken about specifically The Last Jedi, right?
Right.
And Luke, the Luke story arc, and how he thought Luke should be, and this and that, and he was outspoken when he like first read the script, and even he said like all during filming he didn't believe this is who Luke was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then when the movie came out, he was on his like promo thing, and he like supported the director, filmmakers, and no, it's a good movie. I personally don't like. He's sort of could compartmentalize or whatever,
They were breaking him down slowly but surely.
So it's gone quiet. It's gone quiet a little bit. The movie's out on like Blu-ray and digital, whatever. For people that still ride.
It's on Netflix.
For people that buy Blu-ray,
I think it's I think it's on Netflix.
I think it is too. For now, until Disney does their own thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he came up again. He was on some interview with IGN or something. Mm-hmm. And he's talking about it again, and I highlighted this from what he was saying. It says this in the article. In an engrossing interview with IGN, Hamill touched on how at first he thought that someone so resolutely idealistic as the Luke Skywalker of the original trilogy, the embodiment of what the Jedi should be, a rebel hero, a boundless source of naive optimism among his more cynical allies, falling so sharply into despair was impossible. But then the actor realized something grim. Luke's own trajectory from idealism to cynicism matched his own, and he said this: "It's tragic. I'm not a method actor, but one of the techniques a method actor will use is to try and use real-life experiences to relate to whatever fictional scenario he's involved in. The only thing I could think of, given the screenplay that I read, was that I was from the Beatles generation. All you need is love, peace and love. I thought at the time when I was a teenager, by the time we get in power, there will be no more war, no more racial discrimination, pot will be legal." And he made a joke about how one of those three came to fruition,
Right.
which is funny. And he said, "When you think about it, my generation is a failure. The world is unquestionably worse now than it was then." And then the article goes on to say, as in real life, as in Star Wars, as in countless other fictional sagas about aspiring heroes rising up to defeat an ancient evil, nothing is really gone forever, good or bad. A single generation of youthful idealists might enact some change, but without addressing the systems that allowed the villainy they fought to rise in the first place. In Star Wars' case, the Senate's corruption makes the fertile ground that both Palpatine and eventually the First Order secessionists exploited. It's just a momentary changing of the guard. And then finally it says this. That's why, as depressing as it is to see great idealists like Luke laid so low, The Last Jedi's critical interrogation of systems and constructs that helped perpetuate the cycle of conflict in the past is ultimately so hopeful. It finds that hope in a new generation of youthful idealists that might learn something from the failures of its predecessors and be the spark that lights the fire of lasting change.
Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah. They borrowed like exact quotes from the new movie there.
Right.
So where are we? Where are we in that? Our question, our springboard for this topic is, as Josh puts it, is the hope in A New Hope dead or just a lie? And that gives you good insight into Josh and his rainbows and sunshine. Is the hope in New Hope dead or a lie? So what did you mean by that? Breaking down this little paragraph or two that we just read.
Okay, so if we're going to break it down, essentially what's happening is that Mark Hamill, who plays Luke Skywalker, had a certain perspective on the character of Luke Skywalker when he played him initially for the first three movies.
Right.
And over time, his perspective on life has changed, and he wasn't prepared for the perspective treatment that was given to the character, which has also changed. And then he didn't think about how those two had connected to each other until now, where we get to see that, in fact, his own cynicism he can see in that character. Here's the problem with that for me. The problem with that for me is that Luke Skywalker is an archetype, right? Mm-hmm. So he's not meant to be a person the way that he has become over time. I don't necessarily have a problem with him becoming a person, but he was an archetype to begin with. And so therefore, like, seeing him now as naive ruins that archetype. And I have a problem with that from the perspective of storytelling. Of course, I also have a problem with that from the perspective of just the philosophical nihilism that's attached to it.
Yeah. It's some weird paradox. Or not, I don't know if you call it a paradox, but it's just a loop.
Right.
Like they're just caught in a loop.
Right. It's a paradigm, right? So what you have here that's being described is a modernist philosophy that came out of revolution, right? So a revolution took place within the empire, done by the rebellion, where Luke was, essentially at the head of that, and over time, that revolution amounted to another modernist empire, and the people who were old enough to watch that happen have now become cynical. What is it that's said in The Dark Knight? You either live long enough to become the villain. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You live short enough to die a hero, or long enough to become the villain, or something like that, yeah. Right? So, it's like that's what's happening. And honestly, I have no problem with the construct that happened in Last Jedi. We talked about it.
It made sense.
It made sense,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It made sense. But you're borrowing from an archetype, and that archetype has to come from somewhere, and you're holding a certain dynamic that some things are innately positive and some things are not. Well, the real problem here, the reason why Luke is no longer naive, as he puts it, is because you're no longer borrowing from that archetype. And if anybody wants to know what I'm talking about, I'm obviously talking about Christianity.
No.
The idea of no.
Nice.
The idea of
Or no, if you're Luke.
right.
The ugly face.
Right. The idea of an ultimate good and an ultimate evil.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have this idea of dark side and light side. That's no longer. And that mirrors
Just
where
gray Jedi.
That's right. And that mirrors where society, it's like Gandalf the White became Gandalf the Gray.
Mm-hmm.
And that mirrors where society is at, and that mirrors the journey that Mark Hamill has taken. And honestly, if I'm being honest, it's because he doesn't have a relationship with Christ that enables him to be hopeful. There should be a hope that is found that sustains us. And so let me just add to it. If it sounds like I'm being if I'm being overtly Christian or whatever and putting onto it this Christian spin about something that doesn't really deserve that, then let me just speak for a second on the absolute ridiculousness of saying that we can put our hope into a new generation. Like, why, if you believe that you were naive in the previous generation and that that there's nothing new under the sun, that every construct that comes along is just going to replace another construct, then it is completely irrational.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, it's completely irrational for you to then say, well, I can't have hope, but another generation might bring hope. Mm-hmm. Like, what sort of...
We call that fact value splits.
Yep, that is a fact value split. That is where your facts and your actions do not make sense.
And then you have to take an irrational leap.
Cindy Kunkel wants to know, where does Boba Fett fit into all of this?
We don't know. He got swallowed up by the Sarlacc pit.
That's right.
We can't know.
That's right.
There's just no way of knowing.
Yeah.
Plus, he said like 2 lines, so
right.
We don't really know what Boba Fett believes.
The bigger question is, why does Boba Fett matter to anybody? I don't know.
He looked cool.
That's what it is, right?
He looks cool. Yeah,
he looks cool.
When you watch those movies back, he was worthless.
Well, you know what it was.
He was worthless. He just looked badass.
There's a documentary on Netflix that talks about toys, right?
I've been wanting to watch.
Okay, and there's a huge thing about Star Wars toys in that documentary.
There's season 2, I think, is on there now, but yeah.
And they talk about how Boba Fett had a recalled part to him because
my dad might have had that freaking toy.
What is worth so much money?
Yeah, well, you should give him crap live now about how he got rid of all of his Star Wars toys.
Never
apparently his kids didn't like it, but what do kids know?
It's true. Never get rid of your toys. I don't know if you can see. Actually, you probably can see on the camera behind Adam. There's like 4 shelves that are in camera that Adam is pointing out right now. Those are all full of action figures. There's over 100 action figures back there that go over the course of my lifetime.
That's 100?
It's like 105.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's what it has to do with. Boba Fett was like this unattainable action figure who could shoot something, and then they took it away from people. And anyway,
thanks for derailing us, Cindy Kunkel, whoever you are.
Right.
Strange coincidence.
But right.
Anyways, yeah, and you have to make an irrational leap, and I don't know. Yeah.
Well, that's the par for the course. And you know what's interesting about that is the Marvel storytelling versus DC storytelling and everything that went on with DC EU. How it was too dark. They deconstructed their heroes, and people didn't like that, and they wanted to go lighter, so they hired Joss Whedon to do that, and it just didn't work. And you can't put the genie back into the bottle.
Yeah, now you're just in this weird
right?
What do?
You gotta let it die, and that's what's
Yeah.
going on with Star Wars. And there's huge things going on in the Star Wars camp right now. Like they're trying to fire what is her name?
Kennedy?
Yeah,
Kathleen Kennedy?
yeah, they're trying to fire her. There's this whole thing.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Because they just don't like where she's taking it?
Right. I think her own husband threw her under the bus.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Like current husband?
I think so.
I don't support what my wife is doing with the
It's with the Star
absolute
Wars universe.
empire. No
Right.
pun intended.
Right, with the Star Wars universe. Yeah, because you need somebody to answer for it. And Mark Hamill has, I mean, he read the script. He didn't like it in the beginning. He should have said something. He's Luke Skywalker, but, now he's on that train.
He let the empire win.
He succumbed to the dark side,
Damn
which,
it.
of course, means nothing anymore.
Oh,
Since
whole childhood is blowing up right now.
the dark side and the light side are exactly the same, according to The Last Jedi. So.
Right. Oh, man. Okay. We have people waiting in the wind here. We have a new game. Let me call up our contestants. And I will explain to them the game. So we are calling them now.
How do you have two phones?
Well, one of our contestants is a difficult man. I have one.
You're not using Wi-Fi for your calling, are you?
Jeremy? Or Alan?
I have two contestants. And I will get the third right now.
Okay.
Are you two there?
I'm here.
And a certain John, a.k.a. your reigning champ on this podcast.
John Glitter Parker.
Da-da-da-da. Can I get some theme music? I feel like...
Calling the third
Play the
contestant.
game. Nope.
All right. There's your theme music. Okay. Do I have all three of you?
You got me. That's all that counts.
I got one. Jeremy, do I got you?
Cold leader standing by.
Cold leader standing by.
Wow.
Nice pull. Okay, so our game this week is music oriented, okay? We've done a lot of movies, we've done a lot of TV, we've done comic book stuff. We need to give some love to the music side of
Yes.
culture, okay? So, this is the basic gist of tonight's game on tonight's episode. So, the theme is summer pop songs, okay? Here's how it will work.
Are you calling somebody on Facebook right now?
No.
I'm hearing like a call or something.
I don't know what's up with that.
All right. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
The theme is the summer pop song. So here's how it's going to work. I have pop songs from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s, okay? And what's going to happen is I'm going to input some lyrics to a pop song in a text-to-speech voice generator of an ugly robotic woman's voice, and you have to guess the song, okay? So you get no music. All you get is the lyrics through a voice that sounds like this. So, it's very simple. First to call it wins.
Are we playing for posters?
We're playing for a prize to be determined.
Okay. All right. Okay.
One of our contestants right now really likes a 2017 edition of Red Bull that I happen to still have a case of. So, whatever. So, since John is the reigning champ, I'm going to give him first dibs at picking his decade of song. We have 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. Where would you like to go? First to three wins. I'll just do it like that.
I love the 90s.
Before we start,
The 90s.
let's officially start.
Time to play the game.
It's time to play the game.
Time to play the game.
You got it. Okay. So John said 90s. He's a 90s. He's a big Vanilla Ice fan. I don't have any Vanilla Ice, so you can already rule that out. You said 90s. Let me pull it up here.
Did I quit? No.
All right. This is a good one. Get ready for the text-to-speak I guess you would say, right now. First to call it wins.
Tag team, back again. Check it to wreck it, let's begin. Party on, party people, let me hear some noise.
Boom.
DC's in the house, jump, jump, rejoice. Says they're...
You got it. Whoop, there it is.
It's hard without music.
It's supposed to be. We'll let one of our other contestants pick the next decade.
I say go with the 80s.
80s. Okay, we got an 80s fan in the house. 80s coming up. Let's see who can get this. I picked some. Ready? Here we go.
Yep.
So don't misunderstand me. You put the light in my life. You put the sparks to the flame. I've got your heart in my sights. Nobody knows it. When I was down, I was your clown. Nobody knows it, nobody knows it. But right from the start, I gave you my...
It's on the tip of my tongue.
But right from the start, I gave you my.
I gave you my heart.
Down thing. Oh, it's
The name of the song.
I can't remember it.
Don't go breaking my heart.
My heart.
Womp, 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 womp is right. All right. So John's at 1. Jeremy, pull.
Go with the 2000.
2000s. It's fun to make these games, by the way. Here it goes.
I'm leaving, please believing, oh. Me and the rest of my heathens. Check it, got it locked at the top of the foe, seasons. Penthouse, rooftop, bird's eye feeding.
Heathens by 21 Pilots.
This is impossible.
Here it goes again. One more time.
I'm leaving, please believing, oh. Me and the rest of my heathens. Check it, got it locked at the top of the foe, seasons. Penthouse, rooftop, bird's eye feeding.
Chingy.
Is it right there?
The song is Hot in Her by Nelly. John, back to you.
Can I go back to the 90s?
You would go back to the 90s.
Yep.
Because that's who you are. Coming up right now.
Ooh, my body's saying, let's go. Ooh, but my heart is saying, no.
It was
Ooh,
Genie in a
my
Bottle.
body's saying,
What is
let's
Genie
go.
in a Bottle by Christina
My body's saying,
Aguilera? Greg, back to you. You guys are going to get swept. The reigning
I
champ
know.
is the reigning champ for a reason.
Let's try the 70s. Pull up
Ooh.
some ABBA or something.
Okay. 70s it is.
Dancing Queen. Exactly.
Here it goes.
There's a port on a western bay, and it serves 100 ships a day. Lonely sailors pass the time away, and talk about their homes. And there's a girl in this harbor town, and she works laying whiskey down. They say, Brandy, fetch another round. She serves them whiskey and wine. The
Yes.
sailors say,
The sailors say brandy. 2-1. 2-1. Jeremy, pull.
Go with the 90s.
I'm going to make an executive decision and say next point wins the whole game. John?
Wow.
Put it in his pants. Cut it with a knife.
The mood is tense. Here we go.
like a river flows, surely to the sea.
Trick question.
Darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be. Take my hand. Take my whole life too.
I'll give you a hint and say this is a trick one. Here goes.
Like a river flows, surely to the sea. Darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be. Take my hand. Take my whole life too.
If it's not Elvis, then in the 90s, it's...
The English band. They're saying Red Wine. UB40.
Yeah.
And the song is...
Now I'm just so excited. I got the song. I can't remember.
You're both winners tonight. The song is Can't Help Falling in Love.
Nice.
Not by Elvis. All right, you're both winners on tonight's game. John, you're still the reigning champ, but you share the belt tonight. Jeremy, thanks for participating. You're awarded no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. I'll talk to you guys later. Well, that was semi-successful.
Sure.
Let's move on. So, the main topic of the night. Sorry if I'm yelling.
Yes.
Hereditary.
Hereditary.
So Josh and I made it a point to go see this movie.
This is a
Yes,
spoiler alert.
a fun-filled spoiler alert topic tonight. Hereditary. So we made it a point to go see this movie because it's the it movie right now, getting already like Oscar buzz a year in advance, and it's like one of those Get Out situations. You know, it's like genre defining and so on and so forth. Different actresses, you know, putting in like career defining performances or something like that. So culturally, it's an important thing to pay attention to, I guess.
Yep.
So we made it a point to go see it on Thursday, and we did. And
During the day.
during the day, yeah,
We made it a point to go see it in the middle of the day, where
So-
we could watch a couple episodes of The Office
I
afterwards.
feel like we should just I don't know, give a warning and then briefly unpack it and then do our springboard. So, a warning. Once again, don't go see this movie flippantly. Don't allow this to be a movie when it comes out digitally that you're scrolling through Netflix and new releases and you read the synopsis and you're like, oh, weird. Oh, Toni Collette. I know Toni Collette. I like her. Okay, I'll watch that. Like I did when I watched Human Centipede.
Yes.
I watched that movie.
Right.
Like, what?
Human Centipede.
And I was completely blindsided by that movie. But anyways, so don't let it be a movie like that for you. Know what you're getting into. So this movie is...
Yeah, let me just...
yeah, go ahead.
Like I've said before, and like Adam was saying about me in particular, I do not believe that anybody should entertain themselves with anything that they don't know is safe. Mm-hmm. And the human mind is very, very, very malleable. There's a reason why people do things like hypnosis, for instance.
There's a reason why they start young with kids shows.
Yep, there's a reason why they start young with kids shows and how they do things. Read articles about Hollywood and how it, you know, and the way in which it has an agenda that it wants to populate amongst people. Mm-hmm. What we input into our minds should not be taken flippantly. And least of all when you're dealing with spiritual things, because there's a spiritual element to how our minds work. So when we went into this movie, we had a certain awareness that it was grasping the minds of people. Mm-hmm. And we want to be very careful to make clear that it was not entered into flippantly. Let me also say that you may think, because I'm a pastor and Adam's a pastor,
You're doing it again.
That
you're being so Christian-y.
Right. That we are Christians and therefore noobs. No, not at all. For a long time, I made it a point in my life to stay up to date on all those things and watch every single thing that was negative, so that I could have an understanding of what was going on. If you have seen it, I probably have seen it and more of it. So, with that said, and that goes all the way
he's probably read an in-depth whatever
right.
on it
that
too.
Goes all the way to everything from, you know, from your dark mainstream movies to your non-mainstream movies like John Parker, you're gonna help me out on this, but 2-inch fangs, 3 feet tall, 2-inch fangs, to your sampling of demon hentai with Uratsiki Doji. Believe me, I've seen tons of stuff. I am not a noob. So when we're talking about this, I want to be clear. This isn't Christians being like, okay, we got to censor this.
Yeah.
Let's put our holy water into our soda.
No.
That doesn't make sense. But
yeah, be super on your guard, and don't go to a movie looking to get entertained by a scary movie that might make you jump.
Right. I like to be scared, so let me open up my consciousness for people to scare me while I veg out.
Yeah, that's not wise. So don't do that. So, yeah, this movie is overt. And I think that just for me personally, I think that I was talking to one of our friends last night about it, but I was talking to Colin about it, but I think that because it's overt, it's almost less sinister or something, because it's so overt. You're like, you kind of, when you walk out of it, you're like, wow, type thing,
Right.
You're not.
Well, I think we both did.
Yeah, right.
Well, because the last lines that you hear in the movie, this is again,
Spoiler. Yep.
the last lines that you hear in the movie are the rise of a. What was I thinking? Okay, are the rise of a demon king and one of their worshippers saying
Several.
But specifically the main worshiper saying, "We renounce the Holy Trinity." Mm-hmm. Like there's,
hail, and they literally end it like hail the demon. Hail, the demon's name is Payman. I don't know if that matters. You do with that what you will, but
right.
Be careful in looking into that. It's same kind of thing we're just talking about. But
Right.
It literally ends with demon worship. Cut. Roll credits, no music. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah.
And it's one of those movies that you're just like, wow.
Right. Well, and it's quite the journey too. Like
Yeah.
it's an extreme journey. Like you go into it, and it could easily be the story of a dysfunctional family dealing with grief.
Yeah, and how it tears them apart.
Right. And then it sort of snowballs.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, spoiler alert, and we don't have to hit it again, but probably half the movie alludes a little bit to some spiritual something going on, but it doesn't really focus on it too much. It's just like this family grieving and horrible, haunting things happen to them, with different people in their family, and it tears them apart and stuff like that. And then the last 30% of the movie is that it just really plunges forward on the whole demonology and occult stuff.
Really,
but,
the last 10 minutes of the movie is when it starts going crazy.
Yeah, and it does get pretty crazy. But your own personal views, you were telling me this, but to share, you weren't personally, because, again, you have a long history with this and a study and blah, 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 and experience with certain things, but you weren't personally, you personally were like, I don't get it. What's the big deal?
Yep. Right. I get it from the standpoint of, or when I say what's the big deal, what I mean is I don't understand why Hollywood thinks it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
That's what I don't get. I don't understand why the critics think it's such a big deal. There wasn't anything other than the fact that Toni Collette is great.
Yeah, performances and
everything.
The way it's edited and shot, it's definitely artistic in that way. And so
I was let down by it, honestly, in that regard. Well, because there's this whole thing about the miniatures, and I really expected there to be more with the miniatures.
Well, that's a writing thing though, right?
Well, no.
Or storytelling
using the miniatures to go in and out and stuff like
that.
that.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that in the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, well, they did it in the previews.
Yeah.
So I thought that's it was kind of going to be creepy like that, and they did it in the opening scene.
Yeah.
Where it's the miniatures and it zooms in, and then. Yeah.
I mean, from a purely whatever, and I'm not an authority on it, whatever, but I can see when it comes to the editing and the sound and the lack of music and the way it's shot and in this one house type thing and the environment as a character in and of itself type thing, I can appreciate that, sure. But in terms of the occult stuff, you weren't personally whatever. There's some haunting images in it, like I was saying, beheading is a huge thing in this movie.
Huge thing.
Several people are beheaded,
or there's some sort of implication,
really beheaded, or dream of being beheaded, or some sort of implication that something's going to
their
happen.
heads are being messed with. Like there's a scene where a guy's head is trying to be ripped from his body.
Yeah, so that's interesting. That's not interesting. That's, I guess, be warned of that if you're like.
Oh, and there was a super probably the biggest negative scene in the movie was when Toni Collette essentially beheads herself.
Yeah. So again, spoiler alert. But so just in terms of all that stuff, be aware of that. I think because it was so overt for me, like I'm not bothered by it like on a spiritual level personally. Mm-hmm. It's one of those ones where it's just like, wow, that was okay. That's where they're doing now.
I remember you specifically saying like, how do these actresses and actors and directors like look at this thing in terms of their body of work?
Yeah, I was telling Josh like, because these people go on promo tours around the world.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna go around the world and promote something that ended literally with people saying, "Hail the demon! Hail the demon! Hail the." Huh? Like, that's so weird. You must seriously be able to like shut off parts of your mind or something.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, I get it. Like you were saying too, like it's characters and they're playing characters, but so that's that. So I pulled an article or a review or something and I highlighted a couple things in here. Let's see. This reviewer says this: Hereditary is a different breed. It's a different breed. The demonology and cult worship that's infused from lore that seems to be more ancient and foreign to what we're typically presented. So in this movie, in Hereditary, and this is me speaking now, in this movie, there's no, with the exception of like maybe some iconography, iconography of like Christ at the end, right? Mm-hmm. Which is terrible, but yeah, there's like no Christian whatever, defense or mention. They mention it at the end. We reject the Trinity, but it's all like these weird pagan demons, and this person calls it what do they call it? Like new spiritualism or something like that. Mm-hmm. They call it something like that, but yeah, there wasn't a lot of Christian whatever, but this person was talking. It's good from our whatever, but artistic. Christ or anything biblical is never suggested as a strategy to combat the supernatural happenings. And while other horror films still like to play in the Abrahamic religious realm, Hereditary feels distinctly pagan or New Age in comparison. That's what it said.
Definitely.
Yeah. This wouldn't necessarily be a problem provided the story's themes justify the fatalistic, satanic nature of the events. However, I have mulled over this film a time or two, and I still struggle in determining exactly what message is being promoted. And that's where I'm coming from in viewing the movie, is it's so clearly bad, and this family's, and I'm trying to like stay focused with what we want to talk about, but so this family's grieving, and their grieving opens up the doorway for, this demon or whatever to
well, I mean, the demon is the reason the grieving takes place, but yeah.
Sure. So, but like, what am I trying to say? It's the film itself is like, there's no positives that you can draw from the movie.
No, this film is absolutely anti-art.
And I also mean like no moral positives, no spiritual positives, no. Like
the only redeeming character is the husband. And how he bites it makes zero sense.
Yeah, it's a plot hole, but that's besides the point. That's a plot hole. But I don't know that it is besides the point. It's 100% irrational how he gets killed off. Like, he should be safe, but he's not. Oh, okay.
And he's the one good character in the whole thing, and it makes no sense whatsoever.
Good, if not very weak.
And then they just move on.
Yeah. But yeah, like,
so it goes back to that fatalistic.
So where I'm coming from, I'm trying to like stay whatever in my thoughts, but because there's so obviously no positives in what happened with this family, how they interacted, what they did, what they were like susceptible to, how they treated each other, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in a way that like points to something better, like that's like a rock bottom or something.
I suppose you could use it as like
weird
therapy. At least you're not this.
I mean, yeah, like it's almost like because there's such an obvious lack of hope and light
Right.
in this family, in this story, whatever, like it like begs the question to me of like, well, then there's got to be something that's the opposite of that. And I don't know, how do I get...
It's high contrasted.
Yeah, high contrasted, sure. But do you have thoughts? I'm just trying to stay like...
Well, I mean, where I am is just I think the message is fatalistic. I think that is the point of it. The message is there is no hope, and especially not in your family. You know, like your family, like, so the basic story is that the grandma is part of a long line of avatars of this demon king, and they're constantly trying to birth a male because the demon king likes to be inside a male body. And so the family has females, but there's also like one male boy. And so the whole thing is getting the right male child to come along and to get it to the point where it's susceptible to being taken over.
And in this grieving, deaths in the family, et cetera, it ushered that in. It opened the doorway for that.
Right, exactly. And that's literally what the story is.
Yeah.
So, again, I think what you have here is this, just like the writer of that article said, there's a certain fatalism to it. There's a certain nihilism to it. That essentially families are there to destroy you.
Yeah,
that's the long and short of it. Your family's there to destroy you. Everything that's wrong about the universe actually is wrong, but it's secretly wrong and super insidious. And the only chance you have for a better world is one where you succumb to the darkness and lose yourself to demonic possession.
Yeah. It was,
and which was that was what the end speech was the main follower saying to the kid, who now is sort of orienting himself as the demon. He was sort of like realizing that he is the demon now, saying to the kid, like, now everything is fine. Now that you've finally succumbed to this truth of whatever. And I think that is the story. The story is family is hell.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Yeah, and I was in our conversation earlier, and I was comparing it to, it reminds me of, so there's this really popular philosopher right now. He's like, I think he just came to Portland. He's on some sort of tour. His name is Jordan Peterson. And in his work or whatever, he's got this work he's promoting, the 12 rules for life. He talks about this concept of like a living hell, like it's an actual thing potentially, and based on all these different things and how you conduct yourself, how you live your life, how you treat people, this, that, and the other thing, like can create that for you, can create like an actual living hell. I think that's an interesting concept, that it's potentially not just, I think it's interesting. I don't know what else I think about it. That it's not just like a purely spiritual.
Well, I mean, hell is not purely spiritual, but it's definitely not this earth.
Right.
The scriptural standpoint is that hell is a place. I mean, we can get into the difference between Gehenna and Hades and hell and the lake of fire and all these different things, but the long and short of it, the negative place that you go to at the end of everything.
It's very Stranger Things of you.
Right.
The negative place.
I like
or the get out.
Yeah.
The sunken place.
The sunken place, yeah.
Sunken place.
The negative place that you go to at the end, whatever you want to call it, is a result of getting involved in spiritual warfare with God that was taking place long before humans came along. You got involved with it. As human beings, we got involved with this spiritual warfare, and we suffer the consequences with the side that we choose. So there was already this consequence of hell before, and if we choose the wrong side, then we suffer the consequence of going to that place, which is, made for demons. These beings that fell from God's grace. And that is a physical place in the sense that our physicality is going to be remade according to Scripture, And so we are physically going to suffer in that place, or, the opposite in the other place. The idea that there's hell on earth, well, maybe if the hell on earth is a microcosm of what hell in the end is going to be, that one doesn't compare to the other, but possibly there's an analogous relationship, I suppose. But the idea that one is the other is absolutely unbiblical. It's unfounded and it's ridiculous. And, this this movie is promoting a concept. It's promoting a concept of nihilism. It's promoting a concept that the only out we have is to give in to a spiritual other, something that's been with us our entire life, that's been looking out for us and wants to give us the world. Mm-hmm. In the book that I follow, we call that the devil. So, yeah.
And if you're interested in getting in touch with that book.
Right.
Yeah, no.
It's not new either. This is, Adam was sort of alluding to it, but, I've got a long, storied relationship with these types of movies and stories. It was a focus of my studies in becoming a pastor. And so I have a long, storied relationship with demonic things. And that's not new. In fact, I was just thinking about it the other day. The paranormal movies. Mm-hmm. It's the same story. Mm-hmm. The last movie ends, again, spoilers, but Toby, his name's Toby, of course. Michael Scott would totally.
Please, no! No!
But,
No! Yep.
But his name's Toby, and he's the big bad in the paranormal movies.
Yeah.
And it turns out that Toby's actually Satan, and he's trying to get born and become the Antichrist. And that's what happens in the final movie. The last paranormal movie is he gets born. You realize that there's this coven of witches that's been trying to get him born for all of the paranormal movies. It's really no different than Hereditary.
Yeah, just less imagery or whatever. It's not so graphic.
Well, it's just not as well executed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some pretty graphic stuff in those movies too. It's just
paranormal movies?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, especially the later ones.
Yeah.
It's just not as well executed, and it's not so blatant at the end. But it's the same thing. There's a movie with Johnny.
The paranormal movies are not so blatant at the end.
Right.
Right.
There's a movie with Johnny Depp called The Ninth Gate. Same sort of thing. Johnny Depp literally has sex with the devil. And there's a bunch of movies like this out there. Mm-hmm. I think the difference with that, I think that's very astute. Whoever this writer was that said there's really no Christian iconography in the movie. It's true.
Well, he has a Jewish background.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. And speaking of him, so I was reading about him, and he was talking about making the movie, and he said. He said, ultimately, I have no ties to the occult. And I guess this is just like a warning. Again,
Yep.
Because this might spark you to look into it. It might spark you to watch it. And it might spark you to research different things.
Right.
So I just, again, would warn you. And the director himself says, I have no ties to the occult. This guy has a Jewish background. And the research was kind of disturbing for me. And at some point, I just had to stop.
Yeah. Well, you try to make it look too real, and what do you get?
Yeah, when you go that deep. So for anyone that is doing that or has that tendency, and, that's good. That can be good, right? Like that you want to educate yourself, but keep your mind shielded.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, we should keep our mind shielded. We really have there's very few reasons why a Christian or anybody else should be looking into the occult.
Yeah, and you said that you had to stop because it just wasn't productive.
Right.
Like I don't need to know that much of that or whatever.
Right. I mean,
it doesn't help my relationship with God. It doesn't help.
Right.
It's just not productive at the end of the day.
Right.
Like, why?
Yeah, I mean, Adam was telling me about his research into the movie, and I literally just walked over to my shelf and pulled up a book.
The Big Bad Book.
Yeah, pulled off the book and opened it up to exactly what Adam was talking about, and there it was. And it's like, I mean, I have access to all that, but that's not what we do.
Yeah.
Like, we have to understand that there is a war for our minds taking place. We should also understand, here's a little side note. The scripture says a bunch of stuff about the end times that are really, really interesting, specifically like in 2 Thessalonians. There's a bunch of different things that are really interesting, talking about the way that people will behave and how people won't want sound advice and all that. But another thing that they say is that in the end times, it's going to be like it was in the days of Noah. And when you look at that and you look at how it was in the days of Noah, the preceding verses before God sends a flood upon man is that there was this interaction between man and spirits, where there was even a level of sexual interaction that was taking place, producing like offspring that they call the Nephilim. But the point being is that we see this level of interaction that's taking place more so now, more than ever. I mean, we see all sorts of what would classically be defined as demonic activity being completely written off. We see the use of like pharmacos, so that's like where we get like medicine and stuff like that. Well, in scripture, pharmacos is defined as witchcraft. We see the use of divination for like really simple thing, like it's viewed as entertainment to like, get your horoscope or your palms read or things like that. Like, there's a lot of things that in scripture would classically be defined as entertaining the occultic world. And it's really important that we understand that when we open up our minds to these things, like, it's not just entertainment. Like, we are literally opening up our minds to being susceptible. And human minds are very susceptible. Human minds are susceptible to humans. Like, they are susceptible to humans. Imagine if there was a malevolent being that was ageless.
Yeah.
That really wanted to mess with
you. That lurks at the corner and waits.
Right.
And waits.
As the scripture says, Satan is like a roaring lion waiting to pounce. So, especially when we're dealing with stuff like this, where what we're dealing with is not even like a slasher film or something like that, but we're dealing with a literal demonic, a story of a demonic entity based on an actual demonic entity, or at least one that was understood to be actual for 1,000 years or 100 years or several hundred years.
Worshipped as an actual
worshipped at some point. It seems like maybe we should be very, very careful. So, do not play with the occult. Do not play with the occult, and turn on your minds for everything. Yeah.
Good night, everyone. Sweet dreams. I'm just kidding. No, that's good, and that's good as sound advice. And in all seriousness, I think that's where we'll wrap it up. And just, do not play with your mind and consume things with intent, like and an active mind.
Hey, let me just say before we do wrap it up, like, let's be clear. Like, if you have a relationship with Christ, you are victorious in that.
Yeah.
But it's not a good idea to sneak over to the other side at night.
Yeah. Don't play around with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why? Because it's not productive. And you shouldn't be. Anyways, if you are... So thanks for sticking with us. If you're interested in today's topics or just staying relevant, as we say, go ahead and check out our Facebook or Twitter page at Culture Insanity. If you have something that you're personally interested in, like a movie or a song or something, whatever, it can be anything.
Game suggestion.
A game suggestion. We like those. My brother likes to give me input on this. Then you can reach out to us on those aforementioned platforms. If you're interested in exploring your faith or are completely new to Christ or the book, our book, as we called it tonight, then you can check out the help tab on vigilance.blog or our new page that will stop being called new at some point, abfpdx.org. Also, I would invite everyone that listens to this and will consume this to check out next month's panel discussion that we call Cross-Examination. It's a panel discussion with local pastors talking about theology and basic language so that you can understand it, you can understand what it is that you believe or are interested in, what it is that you're seeking.
Right, and it is a discussion. You can get involved online and ask questions. You can ask questions there, or you can even ask questions ahead of time.
And you can submit those questions on the Facebook page for cross-examination using the hashtag CrossX, letter X. So next month's topic is the church, very broad, and any question relating to the church is open for submitting and to asking the panel. It's going to be at Aletheia Bible Fellowship in Portland, Oregon.
First time in 5 months.
Since January, on July 29th, and that will take place at 7 p.m. It will be streamed on Facebook Live, and it will be uploaded after it's done airing, and you can check out past events on the Facebook page. So look for Cross-Examination to post this next event, July 29th. And Josh already said how you can contribute, so we invite you guys to that. It's a great resource for questions you have. You know, if you're in a good point with your relationship with God, if you've fallen away from it, just questions.
You have a question you don't know how to answer that somebody's asked, anything like that.
It's to help you better understand what it is that you believe and be fully convinced.
Yeah. Feel free to check out some of our other shows, too. We got Truth Time with Pastor Monty, takes place every week, although it is on a hiatus right now.
Viral Vigil is another podcast. They're very world news, politics. You know, they do social stuff too. They do pop culture sometimes, but they're a more general podcast about these kinds of things. We're pop culture centric, but yeah, check it out. Vigilance Radio Network. We got several different things. And with that, have a great night and see you in 2 weeks, 8 p.m. Goodbye.
The views presented in this program are not meant to express the specific views of Aletheia Bible Fellowship. You are listening to the Vigilance Radio Network.